And I can tell you for sure that if you have a company and you're trying to scale it and you've got a lot of problems at the moment, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to pour a lot more water in the top, and then that's just going to run out the bottom like a leaky bucket, right? And so you've got to be able to plug those holes, but not just plug them temporarily. You've got to be able to fix them at the core foundation of where those problems are starting. Because when you do that, then the business becomes scalable, doesn't it? Without scaling all the problems with it. All right, what is up, guys? Andrew Sparks here, and welcome back to episode number 5. I think it's number 5 of the Andrew Sparks podcast. And this week, I've got a really cool show for you, something that we're going to start to get a bit more tactical into business for you, okay? And so, as you would know, if you've listened to the previous podcasts, you know, we've really built a solid foundation in terms of mindset, the way you need to think about business. And of course, we'll be touching on that stuff as we continue throughout with further episodes of the podcast. But today, we're going to dive really deep into a couple of ways to be able to grow your business. So first of all, if you are following the show, I want to thank you. We are getting some people coming through and, you know, likes and comments and shares and all that sort of stuff, getting some reviews come through as well. So if you love this and you want to continue to see more of this and get this out to more people, I would really appreciate that so that we can share this message with more people, because it is critical to make sure the right information is getting out there. So if you would, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe. You can click the bell notification there as well. Or if you're on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other streaming platforms, it'd be great if you could leave us a 5-star review so this can get out to more people and reach more people. This is a project that I'm really passionate about. We're going to be bringing this to you every single week. And so I want to make sure that as we push forward, we make a really big lasting impact with a lot of people. All right. So today is going to be like I said, almost a bit of a different feel podcast, but this is going to be the start of the journey, starting to solve actual tangible problems within your business, right? And so, as I mentioned previously, you know, a lot of the work that we've been doing to date has really been setting a solid foundation for the way you need to think, the way that you need to operate within your business. And, you know, if you're a CEO, then it's like you have to be operating at your best, because if you're not, then how can you expect anyone in your company to follow you? How can you expect to be able to grow your business to the business's potential? All right, you can't. And as a business owner, often you can become the biggest bottleneck. Now, in the beginning, that can come from the fact that you're trying to get started and build a team and get things moving and get things going. And then everyone reports back into you, and you're so busy that you just can't get around to checking off every piece of work. That's one bottleneck. But the next bottleneck is once you've actually built a team and you are scaling your company, right? The bottleneck can be that you aren't giving yourself enough room. You're not uncovering enough of those limitations and those barriers to be able to think on a bigger scale. Therefore, you strangle the business. Because you're not thinking in the way that you need to, you're not acting in the way that you need to, you're not allocating cash that you've generated properly within your business. And then therefore, you know, a lot of businesses that come to me and they have this stockpile of cash, they think they're doing really well, and they are. Their business is going well and better than most people's businesses. But in fact, if they were able to deploy that capital within the business properly and be able to put it into assets and other resources for growth, then the business would scale so much faster. But often the challenge becomes, as a business owner, you know, let's say you've got a team of 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 people, and you've got this cash and, you know, you kind of are scaling and things are going okay, but you recognize that, you know, your time is spent managing a lot of things, right? Managing potential problems and, you know, challenges that come up. Maybe you got a couple of locations and, you know, you got a couple of managers in place, a couple of teams at each of those locations, but you're still running around solving a lot of the problems that you feel like you shouldn't be. And so in your head, you get a bit frustrated, a bit pissed, don't you? Like, man, How are we actually going to be able to grow this business even further? If I have this level of problems in my business right now, imagine what would happen if we went from, say, 2 locations to 5 locations or 10 locations. And so the objective of the work that I do is to help business owners scale a business without scaling your problems. Okay? And yes, it's possible, but so much of it often, for the hundreds of businesses that have paid me a lot of money to be able to work with them, over 600 businesses now have spent tens of thousands of dollars to work with me and my team to be able to help grow their business over the years. On the flip side of that, events that I've spoken at and people that I've had conversations with that didn't decide to become a client and work with us, at least at this stage, the impact of that is thousands and thousands of businesses. And I can tell you for sure that if you have a company and you're trying to scale it and you've got a lot of problems at the moment, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to pour a lot more water in the top, and then that's just going to run out the bottom like a leaky bucket, right? And so you've got to be able to plug those holes, but not just plug them temporarily. You've got to be able to fix them at the core foundation of where those problems are starting. Because when you do that, then the business becomes scalable, doesn't it? Without scaling all the problems with it. And so we want to be able to fix that. And that starts with you as the owner, which is why we've been talking, if you're the owner listening to this, which is why we've been talking a lot about this in previous podcasts and your own personal performance and the way that you show up. And we'll continue to do that in future podcasts as well. But to be able to scale a business without scaling the problems, today I want to talk about 2 ways to be able to scale your company in terms of, we're not talking about more marketing dollars here. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming that you've already solved, the basic sort of human need challenges within your business. You're not doing 50 grand a year trying to figure it out, right? And that's okay if you are, but the types of businesses that we work with and the types of businesses that this content and information is going to be relevant, you've probably got a team of between 5 and 20, 5 and 30 staff, something like that. And, more staff, these exact same principles will apply as well. But the way to be able to scale your company, and let's dive into this. So the topic for today is really the 2 ways to scale your company, okay? And so the first way to scale your company is essentially going broader, and that's to hire more team, all right? And hiring more team essentially means, let's say you've got 2 locations at the moment, you want to go to 5 locations, for example. Let's say you've got a physical location business. Then if you've got 2 companies at the moment, you know that you just need to go and duplicate more or less what you have already. If you have a gym or a, food store or, a printing shop or landscape supplies or some sort of business, accountant, whatever, where you are going to have multiple locations, okay? And you'll have some sort of structure within that company already. So obviously you're not going to have a CEO at each of these locations, right? But you potentially will have a manager at each of those locations. So whether it's a operations manager, some sort of general manager, and then what's going to happen is it'll filter down from there. In the beginning, maybe you don't need a, general manager, operations manager at each of the locations, depending on what you do. But your org chart will be determined by what is actually required within the business. So of course, let's say you need 6 people to service one location and plus 1 manager. Then you don't need to go and get 4 more people at another location to be able to scale that location, right? Maybe you do if customer service, people are coming in to buy stuff from you and you're not able to service them. You probably don't need more people to be able to service that location. You may, okay? But in a lot of cases, maybe you don't. But where the challenge comes for people is, let's say you have an accounting practice and you've got 5 accountants at one location, right? And then you're basically servicing enough people in the local area. Well, now it's like, okay, let's go create another one. Let's go put another location, 10, 15, 20 Ks, 100 Ks down the road to be able to service another pocket and another area as well. But those 5 accountants that you have in that one location may be sufficient. So then what you need to do to be able to scale and go to another location, you can't take the 5 from that first location and move them to the second location. because you need to be able to service that work in there. So then you need to go and hire more team and more people to be able to scale your company. Okay, as I said, this is one way to scale, which is going broad, which is to hire more team. Okay, the second way to be able to scale your business is to build better systems. And this comes in a way that often what you're doing is not investing in more headcount, because headcount can be expensive, aren't they? If you're going to get somebody skilled, depending on the country that you're in, you're probably going to pay somewhere between 60,000 up to maybe a couple of 100,000, depending on what your business is and what the skills are that you deliver for people. So that can be an expensive process. It may take, 50 clients, 100 clients for one person to be able to service for that to make sense, depending on what it is that you sell, right? But to be able to build scalable systems, let's say you've got that one, we'll use this example, that one accounting practice, you've got 5 accountants in there. Maybe there's some systems and some automation that you can put in place within that business so your accountants aren't used doing basic admin work when they should be charged out at, $200-300 an hour to be able to go and service clients. The more people that you can get client-facing doing quote-unquote billable work, the better it's going to be for your business. So then you want to go back and have a look at the business and go, well, where are the parts that we can actually automate, right? Where can we build better systems within the business? Can we improve our procedures so that, this $2,000 piece of work that we do for clients, we can actually do that for, $1,500 or $1,200 by putting systems in place within the business. So maybe there's improved workflows to be able to speed up the process, get the work out quicker. So one accountant can service, instead of 100 clients, for example, maybe it's 120 or 150. That is a great way to be able to scale a business. You're not actually getting more headcount to be able to do that. What you're actually doing is reducing that by putting systems in place, right? So the two ways to be able to, a lot of people, when I talk about scaling a business, often they think of just pouring more marketing money in. But if you have challenges within the business, maybe your team's not firing on all cylinders, maybe they're causing lots of frustrations, they're not operating within the values of the company, they're causing challenges that you maybe feel like they shouldn't be causing, or you just feel like this is what it's like to run a business, I just have to deal with these headaches. The answer is no, you don't. Right? You just have to raise your standards as a business owner to say, not good enough. We're not going to put up with this shit that you do, right? And yes, through going through that process, of course, maybe that means that you lose some people that want to continue to operate at those low standards. But when you hire, I was going through helping a client this morning go through and put a job description together for a manager at one of her locations. And going through that process of handing things off to other people to get them to be responsible for these things is going to give you, as the business owner, more room to be able to grow the business. And the work that I was putting in with, the hiring process that she's going through here is about making sure that those standards are going to be raised from her so that she's had, challenges with some of her staff before, not delivering. So she sits with a lot of headaches. She feels like she's got to pick up after them all the time, which is very common in business, right? And so if you feel like you're in that place, you don't have to be in that place. You just have to raise the standards and say, not good enough. We don't operate that. Go to the company down the road. See you later. And then you continue to raise the standards of your own company and get those right people into your business so that your business does run very efficiently. Okay? So the two ways to scale your company, remember, we're not talking about marketing or that any sort of growth that way. We're talking about, let's assume that you have that taken care of, because a lot of the businesses that we work with already do. Not all of them, and we're able to help with that as well, but a lot of them they think they have that. So there's always optimizations, let's just say that, all right? But the first way, as I said, is hiring more team. So that's where we go broad. Maybe you do need different locations across different states, and you set up a business and then you have another location, then another, then another. You're going to need more people for that. But at the same time, you want to be looking at how can we do more with less? How can we set up systems within the business so that we can scale initially without hiring more people, because headcounts are going to be more expensive than systems. So we want to look at how to optimize the business to be able to increase the average order value, the average amount of clients that one person can actually work with, depending, exactly what your business is. But these are the two ways that you're going to be able to scale your company, okay? Hiring more team and building better systems. And the truth is, most businesses need to do both, right? It's not an either or. I'm working with a couple of companies at the moment, and, they've done very well. They've gone from one location to a few locations in a short period of time. And these companies sort of get stuck on, well, now I'll go open a new location. And that's right. But the fundamental thinking behind what they're doing is like, okay, I'll open one and then I'll get that set up. And then 6 or 12 months later, I'll open another. And my thing is, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's grow the company. Let's grow the empire. What roles, what responsibilities would you need in your company to be able to grow 5 locations a year, 10 locations a year, in 12 locations, like open one a month? What do you need? Do you need to go and get some capital? Do you need to go and get some help in terms of somebody to be able to go and roll these things out so the owner can continue to focus on the culture and the leadership within their current locations to make sure the product stays exceptional, and managing this person as well? Okay, so you want to, in that example, you want to break away from the thinking that you have that, okay, I'm just going to go to the next location and then wait for 6 months and then go to the next one. No, zoom out. How do we grow the empire, right? You do it by hiring more team and building better systems. And you can do these things simultaneously. Most businesses need both of these things. They need more people on the front lines, more salespeople out there, more people selling products, right? More people bringing more deals back, people going out hunting, beating people over the head, dragging them back into your business. Not literally. But once you get that right, then within the internal operations of the business, building better systems, building more efficiencies, finding ways for every head count that you have to produce another $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year, $20,000 a year for you. Every head count that you have. Because when you do that, your profit margin goes through the roof. You still have the 4 walls of your business if you have a physical location business. But the people within it are able to produce more, which is going to produce often that extra work is going to be 80% profit because you've already paid, or more, because you've already paid for those 4 walls. Does that make sense? So, in summary, 2 ways to scale your company, right? Hire more team, and then secondly, build better and build scalable systems within your business. Systems that are able to scale as you can scale. And when you get these 2 things right, and when you actually zoom out, instead of just going, okay, one more location, and rolling these things out on a 6 or a 12-month basis with like no other real idea or growth plan in place, except, okay, we'll do, some arbitrary number of, we'll do it in 6 months, we'll do it in 9 months. No, open a location, get it up, get it cash flowing, get lots of customers in, improve your product, get a really good scalable system, find efficiencies with your current people, get more market share. And that should be location number 1, right? And then the second one, okay, cool. Now we've created enough cash flow to be able to go, and then maybe you can do one every quarter. If you get to the end of the year and instead of just having, 2 as an arbitrary number, maybe you can do 4 based off your own cash flow without even getting money from somebody else, because you can turn that money over faster, right? Now, we'll probably do another podcast on this at some point of talking about how to get more revenue per member or per client or whatever. There are very specific ways to be able to do that, very simple, very specific ways to be able to do it. But when you can do these things, what that then does is that produces more money for the business to be able to reinvest back into growth and grow much faster. If you've got 100,000, 200,000, $500,000, $1 million sitting on the sideline somewhere, earning 3% interest in a bank, which, factoring in inflation, depending on what country you're in, but you're basically losing money having that in the bank every single year. So you want to make sure that you're able to reinvest that, right? Yes, you need your safety net. You need your 3 months, your 6 months cash flow, depending on what business type you have. But beyond that, if you want to grow, like if you really want to grow to your potential, then what are you doing with all that money there, right? This is where the mindset comes in of you needing to really, like I said at the beginning, you become the roadblock in the business if you're not careful. You know, if all that money's on the side and you're like, yeah, but like, what if something goes wrong? Well, what if it doesn't, right? And what if something goes wrong? What's the worst thing that would happen? You can always make more money, but you can't get time back. And if you've got all this capital sitting on the sidelines, you're not doing anything with it, you don't know how to deploy it, maybe there's some fear in the way, you know, the people's negative voices talking, chatter in the background about, you know, oh, you know, you've done really well, you don't want to let it get too good. Fuck. This is where all these negative beliefs hold the business owner back and stop you from reaching what your true potential is. And that is the purpose of the work that I've done for the past decade, longer than a decade now, to be able to help people recognize their true potential and, you know, do it in a way, like not once in all of those companies while I've been working with these businesses have any of those businesses gone out of business. It's not about being overly risky and putting everything on the line. In fact, I have a risk profile that says I want a certain amount of, you know, money sitting on the sidelines, but it would never be more than 3 to 6 months, either personally or professionally in the company as well, depending on the business type. Unless you have, you know, a really seasonable business. Maybe you're in farming listening to this and you do need a bit more, obviously, in those situations. But for most businesses, you don't. It's just you get to a certain comfort level, right? And a certain level of your potential. Maybe you never thought you'd be able to get to the point where you have today and you've been able to do it. But in your head, you haven't really thought, the vision hasn't been projected through any further for you to be able to grow further, think bigger, put your foot down on the gas. And that's why, you know, we have a group of entrepreneurs that all support each other, all surrounded with each other, people like them, you know, not friends, not family, not employees who all have different risk profiles than you. Business owners in the trenches doing the work, making the hard calls, doing the scary thing, and growing like crazy. So I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. Remember, 2 ways to scale your company. Number 1, hire more team. Number 2, build better, build scalable systems. When you get those things right, and then when you actually zoom out on your business plan, then maybe you're like, wow, never thought that I could do this. Never thought that next level was possible. Well, it is possible. You just need the courage to do it. If you need some help, reach out. Hit me on Instagram here, which is the Andrew Sparks, on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. And once again, I hope that you apply this information into your business. I hope that by listening to this, your risk profile of where you've been operating and your potential has been challenged. Okay? And when you do this, when you're able to challenge that and challenge it consistently, there really is no limit to what you can do. We'll see you guys next week.